What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from the Altar again, and this time we got round 3 with Bleed From Within, but round 1 with Ali Richardson, drummer from Bleed From Within. Thank you for coming on the show today.
Hey man, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you here. It's been 3 long years since we got a full-length Bleed From Within album. Now, the previous album, Shrine, was in my one of my top albums of 2022. So to have this epic follow-up to Zenith come on is really just to go from Shrine to Zenith is truly an epic accomplishment. Was there sort of a vision that you had going in to this album? Did it feel like you were just sort of like picking up or continuing where you left off after Shrine, or was the intention of this album to be new uncharted territory for Bleed From Within?
First of all, thanks for the kind words, man. I'm glad Shrine resonated with you like that. I'll also say we say Zenith. I think Zenith is the American pronunciation,
Yeah.
right? But that's fine, right? I know we've got trash, rubbish, trash, all these things.
Yeah.
But yeah, Zenith was there's we wanted to change things up, man. We'd used, I guess it's most noticeable in the sonic qualities of the album with a different mix, and then but also visually. We'd used the same formula for 3 albums over Era, Fracture, and Shrine. And we really wanted to just take ourselves out of our comfort zone there and really just see what options would present themselves, or what would happen creatively as soon as we removed the safety net that we'd become accustomed to, really, with Nolly and Davey doing the visuals and stuff like that. The whole album's about growth, that's the kind of thing that underpins this. And I think even in the time between Shrine and Zenith, there's so much that's changed just for us personally. You know what I mean? It's been I feel like at this age now, we're in our 30s, and so much happens in such a short space of time. And it felt like the right time to just progress and make a move into kind of uncharted territory. Like it was time for us to do that. And I really think it delivered on that front.
100%. I mean, everything you're describing, I think, was successful on this album. You definitely hit that goal. Because I remember Scott telling me that, like, Uprising, Era, and Fracture, I could have sworn, or maybe it was Era, Fracture, and Shrine, that there was sort of like a trilogy affiliated with it in a way. Is it fair to say that Zenith or Zenith, after interviewing the Zenith passage, I'm just going to keep saying Zenith, but, like, do you feel that maybe Zenith is almost in a way disconnected from the catalog?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, this is a departure from for us. I mean, it's still Bleed From Within. But we're viewing this as a start and as a step into a new part of the band's career. For us, and just it's off the back of everything we've done. Like the touring opportunities that were presented to us after Fracture and Shrine were really incredible, man. It took us places we'd never been before. And the bar's just been raised again, the sort of tail end of this cycle now, and going into Zenith and into this period of time. There's been a big step up, and this is kind of what Zenith represents and what it's all about. And yeah, Kennedy was totally right. Just because of the kind of the formula that we'd been using for the previous 3 albums, we kind of saw them as being grouped together, and it made sense. That was a definite kind of growth over the course of those 3 albums, and then this is us just implementing the changes that we've learned, but also experimenting a lot more with a lot less care for what anyone else would think. I think that kind of comes with age as well. We've just a few itches that have needed to be scratched, and we've gone ahead and done it here.
Yeah. Well, also because this has been the new question I've been asking bands now, especially with bands who I've interviewed a handful of times. This year does mark, I believe, 20 years of Bleed From Within. It is 20 years of the band. So a lot of times, like, I'll just ask you, when we listen to Zenith or Zenith, do you feel that this is the music that you've all wanted to make from the formation of Bleed From Within? You're finally making the music you've always wanted to make? Or because nobody knows where we're going to be 20 years from now. You didn't know where you were going to be 20 years ago, and you're not going to know where you're going to be 20 years from now. So could you really say that this is the music you've always wanted to make? Or do you think that this is the result of just your explorations from Humanity onward?
Yeah, it never gets any easier here in 20 fucking years, man. I'll tell you that. Uh, Honestly, it's difficult to say. Like the music we've always wanted to make, that changes. You know, it changes from album to album now. I think, and I'm obviously everyone's incredibly proud of the body of work that they make at that point. I feel like Zenith is the. I think it's the truest representation of where we're at right now. I feel like there's been a definite step up across the board in terms of songwriting and just the delivery of the product, the honesty in it, the musicianship, and as a complete body of work, I don't feel like we've ever had. I mean, that's the one thing I can say with confidence. I don't think there's never been a more complete body of work. Just on a personal standpoint, there's always been a song or two that has felt like a filler to me, or felt like it's just a bit lost in the previous albums, and that's natural. Sometimes some bands get that. Some bands, if you've never had that, then you're fucking lucky. But for me, there's always been a one or two fillers, and it's always just been a bit disappointing. It's just kind of came in at the end of the writing process, and it's just not sat right. Whereas, honestly, Zenith, start to finish, for me, is still a pleasure to listen to, and it really takes me on a journey every time I put it on. So yeah, I think I can say with confidence that this is the most complete body of work that we've ever made.
Yeah, and I think every member of the band, one thing that's interesting about a band is that every member is going to have something. It's going to relate to it relate to everybody differently. Like I know that Levitate, for example, was very personal for Scott, being dedicated to his grandmother, I believe. So like what you're telling me about Zenith, and almost like it's your sort of journey. I'm wondering, I want to ask this, being the drummer of the band, because you're not expressing yourself necessarily through melody or words as we see in lyrics. Is there a form? Are you focusing on your drum work from a sheer technical standpoint, what works for the song, or is there personal emotion or personal self-expression that you incorporate into your instrumentation as well?
Yeah, I actually do a lot of the lyric writing alongside Kennedy. I think Zenith is actually, I think it might be mostly me on this album.
Oh, wow.
I've always worked closely with him, and just as time's gone on, I've just kind of got more involved, and we work really well together. And admittedly, it's with him that the best sort of results come to be. I've got so much respect for him as a vocalist and a lyricist as well, man. His great work is fucking great. And we really, the lyrical and vocal side of this album was great, because we worked with a guy called Dan Weller, who is an amazing producer, and he produced the vocals on this album. It was still produced, overall by Bleed, but we worked with him to get the vocals down between him and Steven. So I went to the studio with those guys, and more often than not, it was a combined effort. We're just like, right, we're at this section, what do we do? So there was really a chance to put a lot down on it, man. Songs like A Hope in Hell, A Violent Nature, what else? In Place Your Halo. Like, these were songs that really came from me and just where I was at that period of time. And I love being able to have that opportunity to put those words down on paper, and to work with Kennedy on them as well. Do you know what I mean? Because it's one thing being able to write them and being able to whisper a voice note into my phone, but to bring them to life and seeing how he's progressed over the last, with every album, there's a big step up. And as soon as we started tracking this album, as soon as, actual takes were being done with Hands of Sin, the first one that we recorded, I just knew we were onto something special, and that he was at a really good point, and he had a lot to shout about as well. Do you know what I mean? He was coming to me with songs that were nearly finished and just being like, this is what I'm singing about, this is what it means to me. And then I would help kind of join the dots there. But yeah, I mean, this probably has been the most emotive record in that sense for me. I think there's a lot that I was able to talk about that I just haven't had I'm a lot more self-aware now. And I think, again, that's just an age thing. You get to a certain point where you can, very introspective, and just be like, this is where I'm at, this is who I am as a person, and this is how XYZ has affected me. And I think there's an honesty that can be heard there in his delivery and in the lyrical content of the album, when people actually get the physical thing and sort of look through it and stuff like that.
Well,
I hope it connects with folk.
Well, so when a band is, whenever I ask like a band like how the making of a record was done, and they tell me, oh, it was all a mutual collective process where we all came together. I don't buy that that's how it is for the entirety of the making of an album. When you're in a
It's
band,
not.
yeah,
It's not.
because all five of you are incredibly talented, and I know that some of you came in. I know that I believe it was like three of you who were in the band since formation, and then two of you like came on later in the band's formation. So you all have different experiences, different methods of expression. You all have different ideas and all this. So I'd imagine that disagreement almost has to be just as essential as everybody coming together to create the sound that you have, which has a lot of contrast and a lot of experimentation.
100%, man. I mean, it's the nature. It's five people in a room. Do you know what I mean? You're not going to get anyone that agrees with absolutely everything that's been said. I mean, even there's arguments every day, but that's what makes it special, and that's what makes it even more impressive that we've lasted 20 fucking years. You know, at the very core of it all, we are five fucking best mates, and I think as time's gone on, writing does get easier. We're very obviously impassioned, you know, and fucking uh, excited by the idea of new music and by writing. But there's a lot more respect now for an idea that maybe somebody doesn't get at first. I had a really big, I say a big fallout. It's not. It's just kind of telling him an idea was shit. Me and Gunsey always butt heads, and it was on Shrine, and I was like, was it Shrine? There was a couple of Shrine, but I remember the writing process for Shrine, and especially for the start of Zenith, where, you know, he would present an idea and he's almost like letting me hear it and kind of going, ugh. And I was like, yeah, this will be good. And he was like, are you sure? Like, why are you just accepting this? And I was like, well, I trust you. You know, you've proved me wrong in the past. I've proved him wrong in the past. But there's like a good, you know, if he's got a really strong feeling about something and I'm not feeling it in that demo form, then, you know, more often than not, he might be right at the outcome. So I'll just kind of bear with it, and then maybe we tweak it very slightly as it goes on. Or there's a riff that I don't love by itself, but I'm like, I think there's a vocal that could work here, and run it by Kennedy and it works. So yeah, I mean, you know, it's compromise, it's respect, it's trust in everyone. And I think as the longer that we are a band, and we've been this lineup for 8 or 9 years now with Stephen, and Davey's been in the band since 2009, but we knew each other beforehand. So, you know, there's a mutual respect, there's a friendship, and then there's just as a collective, just what we want to make. And I think everyone's got a good idea of what that goal is, you know.
Being that you're both the drummer and you collaborate lyrically, you collaborate on the lyrics as well. Do you have? Is there a similar creative mindset? Are you thinking when you're contributing to the lyrics how it's going to translate rhythmically in a way, or are you thinking about how these lyrics are going to line up with the drums, or do you tend to focus on one thing at a time and you're not really focused on how they're going to work together until like there's a full song together?
It changes from song to song, to be honest. I'm always kind of doing it with Kennedy in mind, and I always think about the live performance as well. So I always like to almost like I treat it like a conversation. Do you know what I mean? You wouldn't like how these words would roll off the tongue or whatever, but that's one of the things that Kennedy likes about working with me. Is because I'm the drummer. So if he's got like a sentence or whatever, he's like, how would you put that to this song? Because I probably hear it differently to him, and vice versa. Sometimes I'll put a pattern to something that makes sense to me, but he hears it as a vocalist and he's like, that's weird. You know, you've made that deliberately too weird or progressive or something, and he'll be like, it should go like this. And I'm like, that makes more sense. That's how somebody would actually say that, as opposed to me just trying to match it around a funny drum beat or whatever. So it changes from song to song, but yeah, I'd say most of my stuff does come from, it's rhythmically based, and then obviously there's the other element is just trying to think about what people would shout in a field, you know what I mean, like when they're trying to create a sing along there. So
yeah, because one syllable is all it takes to fuck up the whole rhythm, and it takes just one drum beat to also do it. So you are really like focusing on like the skeleton and the armature that makes up everything.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Have you always needed music before you came up with any drum patterns as well? Or have you ever had like maybe a whole rhythmic pattern written and then therefore the riffs and the lyrics and the vocals would all just come together over that, or again, you need music before you come up with drum patterns?
No, I've created a bunch of stuff. I mean, I've got a shameless plug here. I've got a MIDI groove pack through GGD, and but that's exactly what that is. That's just songs that are in my head, rhythms and stuff like that. And there's a couple of songs over the course of our career where it's just started from a drum idea of like, I've got this, and I'll usually just create a folder. I do the same thing with my other band as well, where I'll just create a folder and be like, these are drum beats that I've got in my head. How, use them as you please, cut them up, do what you want. So it works either way. For Bleed From Within, our process mostly starts with Stephen or Gunsey coming with a song idea or a few riff ideas, and they already have pre-programmed drums, and then I'll take that away, sometimes remove the drums completely and do something completely different, or just embellish what they've put down there and add some flair to it and make it sound like a human being, not a computer.
And do you find that because I feel like with drums, we talked about it a little bit before, but like a lot of people assume that because it's not very melodic driven, and again, you're not reading lyrics with it, that maybe, again, it's not a very emotionally driven element. But I'd imagine that there's plenty of emotional energy that you may not be able to express in the lyrics that you channel into your instrument as well, right?
100%, and in the live performance, most definitely. And it's one of the reasons why Bleed From Within never have like an overly produced album. I like to think that we've always had a rawness to our mix, to our sound, something that translates very well to the live environment. I mean, I think there's so many bands in this day and age that are massively overproduced and it just doesn't sound real. And you go and see them live and it's such a departure from the album. I'm not going to say any band names in relation to that point, but I think it's an issue with folk now. You know what I mean? I think there's a lot of that pop production that's kind of come over here, and
you come from a scene full of it. I'm just going to say that right now.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. So I think Bleeds have always had, there's a rawness and there's an element to that, and that's why I track drums. I track drums for every album. They're obviously snapped to the grid, but there's some fills that are not. We'll leave that out if it falls nicely into another part, and we try not to heavily sample the parts. And there's little, like, you can hear the hi-hat going, you can hear sticks clicking together sometimes. That's what makes it real. So yeah, I think you can, hopefully that translates on the album, but when you come and see us live, the emotion's very apparent.
Speaking of 20 years of Bleed From Within, because even though it didn't come out till, it won't be 20 years till next year, but in the Eyes of the Forgotten, that debut EP, that's my favorite.
You've really done your homework.
I am a big fan of the band, but what was the mindset celebrating 20 years of Bleed From Within? What was the mindset creating that EP? Even though it'll be 20 years of that EP next year, 20 years of the band, what was your mindset creating that? Is there at all a part of who Bleed From Within is 19 or 20 years ago that we can maybe see on Zenith at all? Is there any part, or did you just completely chew that up, throw it away? How dare I even mention that?
No, I mean, thanks for being a big fan. Appreciate that. In the Eyes of the Forgotten, man. Well, I'll tell you a funny story, actually, right? So the album was going to be called Zero, right? And the whole thinking behind Zero and that name, it's a name we had since Shrine, and we'd been sitting on it for ages, and we agreed Zero. And we had it with the record label, we had it with everyone, the group chat, all the stuff was called Zero. We had the artwork almost ready to go under the basis of Zero, and the brief there was that, like, our whole approach to it was that Zero was us going back to the music that got us into this in the first place. It was meant to be kind of stripped back to, like, Shrine had a lot of orchestral elements in it. I think maybe 8 out of the 12 songs, or however many songs are on it, but 3/4 of the tracks had strings, and it was very grand in that sense for everything we'd done up to that point. But the idea for this was bring it back a little bit, and just make it raw, make it heavy, make it the kind of sounds we were listening to in the early 2000s, 2010 kind of time. And then fucking Linkin Park came out and dropped an album called From Zero, that was going to be out the same week that we were announcing, like, dropping In Place of Your Halo. and would be announcing our album title. So they were going to release, it would have been in the same week. And we couldn't fucking believe it because it takes us, we argue a lot over album names, and we'd been sitting on this for like 2 years and it was perfect and everything made sense and we were really happy with Zero. And then it fucking came out and we were like, fuck, we need to get back to, we need to find something else. So we went back to the drawing board, and I think it was me. It was either me or Kennedy. I think the name came up, but it had been in, maybe been on our drawing board for a previous album or something. But we revisited that, and we just, because we were so in love with Zero and Z, we were just like, holy shit, this is does this one work? And then we read into the meaning of that, and you know, Zenith really stands for the highest point of your career so far. But it also, the second meaning for that in terms of astrology is like the highest point above you at any one moment in time. So it's got a lovely double meaning of, you know, we've just been on tour with Slipknot, we're going out to Billet from a Valentine and Trivia on this 20-year anniversary thing. We've got some of the biggest, going to the biggest festival stages we've played. Our headline tour in UK and Europe coming up, the biggest rooms we've headlined that we've supported in for the last fucking 15 years. Finally taking that step up. So there was like a beautiful moment of, right, okay, this is where we're at. But we're also incredibly humble as a group of guys, man. Do you know what I mean? I think it's partly where we come from in the world, but just because we've done it so long and the hours that we've put in, we're realists, you know? And I think we acknowledge we're still a new band to so many people, and we've been going for 20 years, which I think is humbling, and I actually really enjoy it. So Zenith also reflects on that space above us and the space that we've still got to go, and is just a kind of testament to our resilience and the drive. So there you go. There's a funny story for you.
I love it. And I gotta tell you though, in the eyes of the Forgotten EP though, like I always love listening to a band's earlier material. I know like some people would probably say that's my favorite album and I love all the songs on that album because, and I'm so unique because of it, and where the band is like, no, you just have terrible taste. But like,
that's pretty much how we feel about it.
Yeah, but again, there is a part of you that will always be there with you one way or another, right? Because the reason why I want to ask this is, and this is maybe something that's been weighing on my conscience a little bit because this music always speaks to me, but again, we all grow up one way or another. You know, none of us, no matter, I don't buy it even when a veteran rock star says, I'm still the same 13-year-old punk rock kid. You know, we all grow in a way. So in the end, is there a part of you that has to, I guess, for lack of better words, is there such a thing as, do you have to be careful to not grow up too much, if that makes sense?
Man, that's a fucking great question. These have all been great questions, by the way. It's a really good interview. But you know, I went to see Hans Zimmer a few years ago, and he made a great point, and he was like choosing this path that we've taken and what we are on, right? You obviously have to grow up. Life gets in the way. You get more responsibilities. You know, people are born, people die. It's you have to pay fucking bills. You have to get a house. You have to get a car. Like these things change. You travel the world. Your experiences change. You broaden your horizons. You know, it's everybody changes, and that's very apparent in a band's, especially Bleeds. I think our back catalogue's changed drastically over the years, and that's just a part of our growth and who we've all become. But Hans Zimmer has said this, made a point about he was so grateful to be a musician and a composer because it's one of the few jobs in the world where you don't have to grow up. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I've heard that saying. Not from him, but I've heard that saying. And I don't know if I agree with it or not sometimes, you know?
But, I mean, look, for the reasons that I said, you have to grow up. But there is an element of, you know, when you're just creating music, and I'm talking like just the pure creative essence of like making noise and hitting stuff in a way that makes sense and resonates with folk, like that is very childish, and it's pure core element. To me, it is anyway, like, as a drummer, and if I view that, and if you lose the fun element of it, it can be stressful when you're in the studio and you have to get that again, do it again. I want to get it so tight, but the actual first creative process when you hear something or you play something that just gels and you go, fuck, that's amazing, and you get all excited and there's that giddiness. Like, to me, that's youthful. There's that's never changed. Do you know what I mean? And the exact same thing about playing live when you're on stage and a crowd's just fucking going off. Do you know what I mean? The energy is unparalleled, and you're shaking, and you get off, and we'll jump up and down, we all hug each other, popping champagne, and I was like, that's childish as shit. Do you know what I mean? We're just, it really strips away all of the worries, the growing up elements, or the change that you might feel, and you revert back to some childlike state, you know, if you were to really take it to extreme lengths. But, you know, I think it underpins a lot of what we do.
Yeah. Because
And
the reason why I asked this is because, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to. It's just the reason why. It's just the reason why I asked this is because you're right. Like the essence of discovering, like for instance, Levitate wasn't my first Bleed from Within song, but I think it is one of the best metalcore songs of all time. I told Kennedy that it is on the level of an End of Heartache or a Shadows of Security or a Fall of Ideals. You name all the classic metalcore albums. It's on that level of perfectionism. And I love the music I heard earlier. The feeling of discovering an artist that you really like and that adrenaline rush that you get, that never goes away. I still feel that same way when I was 10, 15, and now at 31 years old.
There you go.
And, you know, and when I would watch interviews of artists saying, never grow up, always be the punk kid, I was like, yeah, that's right. But now I hear the term never grow up, and I'm just like, I don't know. Like, we all want to grow one way or another. I just always feel like, again, finding that balance of bringing the childhood fun and joy that brought you to this, but as an adult, you almost approach things differently because your perspectives are going to change and your emotions and experiences and all that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I could go on about this for ages. I think there's the other thing that comes into play there is, you know, you said about people that maybe say just never grow up or be that punk kid or whatever, but there's also people that have said, like, just chase your dreams and just forget everything and just throw yourself at it. And, you know, Bleed were never in that position. We're only, you know, we've invested constantly back into the band. We all had to get jobs. We work when we're on the road. You know, I manage the band. Some of the guys do motion graphics and stuff like that. Stephen does his recording work. We all have jobs on the road because the band never paid the bills. So it wasn't, okay, we threw everything at it and it didn't work. You know, I remember, I won't say who it was, but I remember somebody, when we'd been a band for 11 years, we were on tour with another band, and their drummer said to me, if you've been a band for 10 years and you aren't making any money, you got to give it up. And I laughed and I was like, well, we've been a band for 11 years. And he went, oh shit, really, dude? And I was like, it's all right, no offense taken. Mm-hmm. But, you know, we've never given up. We've kept on going. And if I'd listened to those people that said just drop it all and do that, then I would, you know, I've had to grow up. I've had to get a job. I've had to make sure I'm stable in order to keep this going. You know, I had to, you know what I'm trying to say here. I think there's, you have to be realistic, man. It's called the music business for a reason. I think if you're going to don't get your, sorry, I just got a bit of work coming through there. Yeah. Yeah, you got to keep your head screwed on, man. If you want to do it for a long time, you got to keep your head screwed on. So there is an element of growing up, but don't lose, like you said. At the end of the day, we're all fans, and we should be. So yeah. You hear a riff that makes you happy, you play a fucking great show, just let it out.
Yeah.
Enjoy it.
Yeah, obviously don't go into it for the money, especially in music. You obviously don't do something for the money, but you have to make it at some point, and you have to, you know, you have to grow up to a certain extent, if that makes sense. Like you have to, you never give away your artistic drive and never surrender your artistic heart, but do let the artistic heart grow. I think that's the moral of this. But before we go off on an even deeper tangent, first off,
yeah, exactly.
I want to thank you so much for your time today. Most of all, though, thank you for all of the great music you've given us over the years and for another amazing album, Zenith. Is there just anything else with Bleed From Within you would like to promote in terms of upcoming tours? I know that you got the Trivium Bullet for My Valentine tour. Am I seeing you at the New York City show? I can't.
Will be. Yeah, that's Bleed From Within. So
yep, I'll see you there.
That's great, man. Honestly, thanks for the questions. This was a breath of fresh air in the midst of all the other stuff. So really appreciate it. Thanks for being a fan of the band. To anyone else that's listening, if you like what you hear, then you can pick it up at our website. And you know, if you're not got the money, just fucking stream it. Just tell your friends, spread the word. If you come down to our show, hopefully we cross paths, grab a beer, see you at the merch desk. I don't know, but yeah, can't thank everyone enough for backing us. And helping us get to where we are today. There's a long way to go, but
Yeah, that venue that you're playing at in New York City is fucking awesome. By the way, you're going to be literally playing in front of the skyline of Brooklyn.
bucket list venue for us. So very excited.
Yeah, hell yeah. But thank you so much, everybody. We are here with Bleed From Within. Check out Zenith or Zenith, depending on where you're from. We'll see you next time on Heavy New York.
Thanks a lot. Cheers.